Hello students. So in this video I'll talk about the history of modern European theatre, modern European drama, and I will first take into account, I'll first trace its historical development from the classical times, from the Greco-Roman times, from the times of antiquity. Now the Greek theatre, it mostly developed in Athens and it is the root of all Western theatrical practices, and in fact theatre in itself had its origin in the Greek term etymology as a Greek word. Greek theatre was part of the broader culture of the classical Greece, so much so that it used to be performed in almost all the festivals, religious rituals, politics, law, music, poetry, weddings, funerals, even symposia, athletics and gymnastics. The theatre of ancient Greek is something had been so vibrant, had been the part of the ritualistic activities and performance that it emerged as some sort of practice which is said to have bear great consequences upon the culture of ancient Greece. Now broadly, if we trace the categorization of drama, the theatre and drama of ancient Greece, it consisted of three types of drama: tragedy, comedy and the satyr play. Now tragedy and comedy is something we all are aware as students of literature, as literature enthusiasts. We are aware of the tragic plays and the comic plays. And satyr plays, they used to be the ancient Greek form of tragic comedy, very similar to bawdy or burlesque performances. Bawdy, B-A-W-D-Y, burlesque satire kind. These will have the elements of mock drunkenness, of brazen sexuality, pranks, there would be side gags, there would be general merriment, right performed in front of the audience on the stage. So theatre arose as part of ritualistic activities and performance of the ritualistic activities, but eventually it came and emerged as liberal and autonomous activity of its own. Now when it was a part of ritual of the ancient Greek, now ritual is something which requires some sort of conformity, something which is religiously followed, a practice which is religiously followed for a considerable period of time so that it bears certain tangible consequences. Now, when theatre was a ritual of some festival, in the 6th century BC, the Athenian ruler Pisistratus, he established the city of Dionysia, a festival of entertainment which was to be held in the honor of god Dionysus. Now Dionysus was considered a patron of the arts because it was believed that praying him would liberate and inspire men, the poets, and it can endow the men with, the poet primarily, the poet with creative and divine creativity, divine inspiration. The winning poets, they were held in high regard by their fellow citizens, and they would even be elected to important political positions, important political and military positions, military posts. Sophocles, for example, he won around 20 victories in the tragic Aegon, that is the tragic competition, between around 1468 BC to 406 BC. And this was the time when he was, because of his number of awards, accolades that he won, he was also awarded the post of Helionotamus in 443. Helionotamus. He was also awarded the generalship during the wars, and this was particularly due to his enormous victory and enormous success of the particular play called Antigone. So all in all, from antiquity itself, the poet was responsible for directing the play. Whenever the festivals would be celebrated, the climax of the festivals would be the performance of the tragedies, and of course 3 tragedy and 1 satyr play, and this would span over the period of 2-3 days. And the producers of the play, the poet, of course, used to be the director, the poets and the actors, they competed in this competition called Aegon. And this is where the victory earned these different playwrights, different dramatists, and which would bring them tremendous prestige, tremendous success and respect from the people. And as Aristotle's Poetics tells us how the distinction between a poet, an author, a historian, a tragedian, etc. it didn't exist. The poet assumed the all-encompassing, omnipresent role of the creator of different branches of knowledge, different epistemologies that we see today. And in fact, this is something time and again emphasized by poets of different ages, especially think of Shelley, how Shelley saw poets as the ancient beings, as how they were the carriers of wisdom, civility and prudence. Coming back to the Greek tragedy, the origins of Greek tragedies are unknown, and even research in its name have not been proven quite illuminating. There had been attempts to discover the origins of tragedy in various number of rural customs and sacrificial rites, but there had not been a sufficient data to establish, or to sufficient material, sufficient say empirically established material or data to confirm about the origins of tragedy. And eventually religious belief, this is how the religious beliefs, the Christian religious beliefs and other popular superstitions, rituals, everyday practices, magical concepts, they became amalgamated and as the part of the plays. Eventually, the immense popularity of the religious plays, particularly the passion plays, among the urban European population, it continued unbroken throughout the 16th century, and we see that suddenly at the end of the century, the religious plays practically disappeared from all the large cities in Europe, and apart from some of the individual plays here and there, it survived in rural regions, in mountain regions, and sometimes even into the 17th and even 18th centuries. But the sudden decrease cannot have been the result of fundamental change in the taste of the spectators, and of course depending upon how much the permission was provided, how the permission was provided to these guilds, GUIDLS. The guilds would certainly have continued to perform whenever and they have applied and they have been allowed. As early, in fact, to give as an example, as early as 1515, an application to perform a passion play in Frankfurt had been found, it was also found that it was turned down by the city council. Now, if I take into account the difference between Greek theatre and Roman theatre, very broadly it can be stated that Greek theatre was performed for special occasions and they used to be highly competitive in nature. With Greeks, theatre was more like a culture in which seeped everything, every aspect of human life. This was started in Athens in ancient Greek between 550 BC to 220 BC. And while on the other hand, with Romans, it was not really a way of life. It was just a part of it. With Greeks, it was all about a mixture of myths, history, legends, philosophy, poetry, dance, music, social commentaries and so forth. And with Romans, they largely held the belief initially that Romans might be corrupted by Greek influences. That is why they need to be selective in terms of their adaptations, their imitations and so forth. Talking about the physical aspects of performances, the logistics of it, Greek theatre was by and large used to be performed in large hillside amphitheatres, while the Roman theatre, they were all temporary structures. They were all makeshift kind, put up just before the performance and taken down after.